Imagine, you stand in the great hall of a royal palace in 17th century Europe. Courtiers swirl past in a blur of jewels and powdered wigs, their smiles hiding whispers of betrayal. At the far end of the room, a young nobleman, handsome, flushed with wine, leans toward a woman whose beauty is so precise it seems sculpted. Her lips curve in a smile that never quite reaches her eyes. She leans in, and their mouths meet for the briefest, softest kiss. Moments later, his body stiffens. A shadow passes over his face. His goblet falls to the marble floor, and so does he, gasping, clutching at his throat. His lips are still stained red. It was not the wine that killed him. It was the kiss. Before we unravel the truth behind this fatal kiss, remember, history hides its most dangerous secrets in the whispers of forgotten halls. If you love uncovering the dark and hidden corners of the past, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from. The year is 1648. Europe stands at the fractured end of the 30 Years' War, a continent scarred by battles of faith, power, and greed. Kingdoms rise and crumble under the weight of shifting alliances. Treaties are signed with smiles, but sealed with daggers. In one such kingdom, the royal court is a theater of both splendor and danger. The palace itself is a labyrinth of marbled corridors and velvet-draped chambers, its beauty masking the venom in its heart. Here, loyalty is currency, and betrayal is the surest path to survival. Every glance is a calculation, every word a move in the grand chess game of power. The king, brilliant, ruthless, and endlessly charming, rules, not only with his armies, but with a network of spies and informants. His enemies are not just across the border. They dine at his table, toast to his health, and plot his death before dessert is served. Within this gilded cage, assassination is a recognized if unofficial tool of diplomacy. Poison is the preferred method, silent, efficient, and leaving little trace. But the king, ever the innovator, seeks something more subtle, more seductive. Thus begins the tale of a woman whose beauty was both her armor and her blade, his secret mistress, transformed into the deadliest weapon in his arsenal. She was not born to be a weapon. Her name in the court records was erased long ago, but whispers say she was the youngest daughter of a minor noble family, one whose fortunes had crumbled in the aftermath of war. Her father, desperate to restore the family's standing, sent her to the capital at 16, ostensibly to serve as a lady-in-waiting. In truth, she was an offering to the court, a pawn placed carefully in the path of power. From the moment she arrived, she drew eyes. Not merely for her beauty, though that was undeniable, but for the way she listened, as if every word spoken around her was a treasure to be hoarded. The king noticed her at a midsummer masque, where she appeared as the moon, silver-veiled and silent. He danced with her once, and by the next evening she had been summoned to his private chambers. What began as a secret affair soon became something far more dangerous. The king trusted few, but he trusted her enough to share his fears. Plots against him within his own bloodline, alliances shifting like sand, and the ever-present risk of assassination. It was during one of these midnight confidences that he first spoke the idea aloud. "They would never suspect you," he murmured. "They would not believe that death could hide behind such a mouth." The training began in a chamber far from the eyes of the court. Her instructor was no courtier, but an apothecary exiled from Venice, a man rumored to have created poisons so fine they could be hidden in the scent of roses. He taught her the properties of arsenic, the sweetness of cyanide, the slow certainty of powdered glass. But it was aqua tofana that became her signature, a colorless, tasteless liquid that, when painted onto the lips, could seep into the bloodstream with the press of a kiss. She learned the art of application, the exact amount that would kill within minutes, and the slower doses that left victims writhing in agony for days. The apothecary warned her, "It will not harm you if you are careful, but forget yourself for a moment, and it will be your lips that turn blue." Her first mission came sooner than expected. A foreign ambassador suspected of bribing members of the Privy Council was to be removed before he could finalize a dangerous treaty. She was placed in his path during a garden party. The meeting was brief, her laughter light, her kiss on his cheek no more than a social courtesy. 3 hours later, he collapsed in his carriage. By dawn, his body had been returned to his homeland, sealed in a lead coffin. The success emboldened the king. She was sent again and again, to a rebellious general, to a duke who had whispered too loudly about succession, to a cousin of the king whose ambitions had grown too public. Each time, she returned to the royal bedchamber, praised for her loyalty and rewarded with jewels no one else dared to wear. And then came the night that changed everything. It was at a winter ball, the air outside thick with snow. She was told of her next target, the visiting crown prince of a neighboring realm, a man whose death would cripple a fragile alliance and give the king the advantage he sought. She accepted the mission without hesitation until she saw him. He was nothing like the other men of the court. His wit was sharp but kind, his smile unguarded. Over the course of the evening, he sought her out, not as a conquest, but as an equal. They spoke of books, of music, of the absurdity of politics. When he asked for a dance, she found herself saying yes before she remembered the vial of poison hidden in her fan. In the weeks that followed, under the pretense of political hospitality, they met again and again. Her laughter became genuine, her questions less calculated, and somewhere in the quiet moments between their stolen conversations, she realized the truth. She could not kill him. But the king's patience was not infinite. A date was set, a banquet arranged, and the order given once more. There would be no refusal this time. On the night of the feast, she dressed in crimson silk, her lips painted with death. As she approached him across the candlelit table, her hands trembled not from fear of failure, but from fear of what her choice would mean. In the world of 17th century Europe, poison was as much a political tool as the sword. While kings and generals fought their wars openly, the true power often shifted in the shadows, at banquets, in bedchambers, in whispered conspiracies between candlelight and darkness. Aqua tofana, the poison said to be her weapon of choice, was infamous in Italy. Created by Giulia Tofana, a woman who sold it under the guise of a cosmetic, it was marketed as Manna of Street, Nicholas of Bari, and stored in ornate bottles that would not arouse suspicion. Just a few drops in wine or on the lips could bring about a death so slow and natural-looking that even physicians were fooled. Victims often died in stages over several days, allowing the killer to avoid suspicion. The use of such poisons was not confined to Italy. In France, the infamous Affair of the Poisons during the reign of Louis XIV revealed an underground network of fortune-tellers and alchemists, supplying noblewomen with deadly concoctions. In England, rumors of courtly poisoning circulated around the execution of Anne Boleyn and the mysterious deaths of rivals to the throne. Female agents played a unique role in this world. Their beauty and perceived innocence allowed them access to the most intimate circles of power. While male assassins relied on blades and brute force, women could kill with a touch, a drink, or, as in our tale, a kiss. Whether the mistress in our story truly existed or is a composite of several whispered scandals, her archetype was real. History records dozens of women who navigated the treacherous corridors of court life, armed not with armies, but with vials of clear, silent death. And so, when the moment came for her final mission, she was not just deciding the fate of a man, but perhaps the fate of a kingdom. The banquet hall shimmered with candlelight, the air thick with the scent of roasted game, spiced wine, and the unspoken weight of political theatre. She sat 3 seats away from the crown prince, her pulse thrumming in her ears like a war drum. The king watched from the head of the table, his gaze a command. Tonight, there could be no failure. She touched her lips to the folded napkin in her lap, transferring the invisible film of aqua tofana from silk to skin. It was habit now, an unthinking ritual, honed by years of obedience. But tonight, her hands trembled. When the prince leaned toward her, offering some wry remark about the stiffness of courtly manners, she smiled. It was the same smile she had given every man she had ever killed, and yet it wasn't. She could end his life in a breath, silence his voice before the night was over. But she also knew that if she spared him, the king would know, and she would be next. The hall seemed to hold its breath as she rose, gliding to where the prince stood by the window. Snowflakes drifted outside, lit gold by torchlight. She stepped close enough to feel his breath. Her lips hovered an inch from his, her eyes searched his face as if looking for permission, or perhaps forgiveness. Then she leaned in. And what happened next is lost to history. Some say he died before dawn. Others claim they both vanished that night, slipping away into the snow, never to be seen again. What remains is a portrait in a forgotten gallery. A woman in crimson, her lips a deep, impossible red. No one knows if it's the shade of love or the color of poison. Perhaps she was real. Perhaps she was only a shadow stitched together from gossip, fear, and the irresistible allure of a deadly beauty. History offers no confession, only fragments, records of sudden deaths, gaps in court chronicles, a half-burned letter in a noble family's archive. But one truth endures. In the world of kings and crowns, the sharpest blade is often hidden behind the sweetest smile. And sometimes the most dangerous weapon is not forged of steel, but pressed gently against your lips. What do you think? Was she a living, breathing assassin in the king's service, or a legend born to frighten those who dared betray the throne? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. In our next journey into the shadows of history, we will unseal the cursed tomb of the Witch Queen and the unspeakable fate of those who dared open it.